Let's settle this once and for all. Genre fiction or literary fiction? So as somebody that reads both literary fiction and genre fiction, I'm not going to pick a side. But I just want to understand and I want to dissect why people are ready to die on opposite sides of the camp. And to do that, I'm going to be defining the concept of aesthetics. Before I define aesthetics, let me just differentiate between genre fiction and literary fiction. So genre fiction is the more popular kind of fiction, is the mainstream kind of fiction. So it encompasses like romance, thriller, fantasy, so on and so forth. But literary fiction doesn't focus on the plot as much as genre fiction. Like for example, a lot of literary books are very slow paced. And if somebody asks you that, okay, what's this book that you're reading about? You don't have a plot in mind. You just have a character. You can say that this girl, she likes going shopping on Thursdays. And so literary fiction deals more with character. And most of the time it focuses on societal issues and on very deep themes. But this doesn't mean that genre fiction does not actually talk about deep themes. But it's just that literary fiction is just more character based. Meanwhile, genre is more plot based. So let me define aesthetics. So aesthetics just concerns itself with like the appreciation of art and beauty. And when you talk about aesthetics as a branch of philosophy, you talk about art and its value, like the functions of art, all those things, like what can art do in the society. So that's what aesthetics is. And since writing is a form of art, that's why there is aesthetics of literature. Why is there a debate between genre fiction and literary fiction? Which one is better? It just all boils down to what people think is the function of art. And don't forget I said that under aesthetics, we also look at the functions of art. Some people have varying views on what art is supposed to do. The people that feel that literary fiction is boring and pretentious and snobbish in a way feel that art is supposed to be entertaining. Why else would you admire art if not to entertain yourself? So people read books, people watch movies so they can escape the realities of life and just amuse themselves. So that's what people think is the primary function of art. But the people that read literary fiction and those that say that, okay, genre fiction is garbage and it's childish and it's just poorly written, feel that art is supposed to show you the ills of the world and inspire change and just instruct you on how to live life. So that's what they feel that art is supposed to do. So you can understand why people are very opposite minded about this thing. On one hand, people think art is supposed to be entertaining, and on the other hand, people feel that art is supposed to instruct you on life. So that's why literary fiction covers a lot of deep topics like colonialism, racism, domestic abuse, because it wants to show you the ills of the world and it wants to show you how you should live your life regarding these themes. But let's actually look at it. Is one supposed to be better than the other? Both of them are useful, entertainment and inspiration. Are we supposed to put one over the other? Because entertainment can help people who are struggling with their lives. Inspiration can help you become a better world. A lot of philosophers are of the view that, okay, that art should be able to teach us something. Do you understand? Like, it should instruct us on the way we should live our lives. But I want to ask a question, like, why are we putting that responsibility on art? Like, that's the job that art must do. Why can't it do other things? Why are we putting that responsibility on teaching and instructing on art? Because if I wanted to learn something, I would just go to a documentary and watch, open a textbook and read. Why are we placing heavy emphasis on learning on art? And on the other hand, other philosophers are of the view that, okay, art should be just for art's sake. But also look at it from the point of view, like, an artist puts a piece of himself into his art and it's a form of self-expression. So in a way, we learn from art. Do you understand? So I can see where both sides are coming from. But the issue I have is that people feel that one is better than the other. And they don't look at the spectrum. That, okay, in the middle, there could be a genre fiction that is actually quite literary. For example, look at A Song of Fire and Ice, also known as Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is actually very entertaining and it also teaches us about greed and power and revenge. All those literary themes that are actually very heavy. Why do we feel the need to classify our artworks? Yes, it's true that there are some literary fiction readers who feel like, as well, if you are reading genre fiction, you are unintelligent and you don't have acquired taste, you are a very dumb person, those kind of insults. And I can understand why genre fiction readers are very upset at that. But it's also true that there are some genre books, mainstream books, that are actually very unimaginative and quite boring because they have been copied and copied and copied. So there are pros and cons to each side. literary fiction can be very difficult for a person to start reading, especially if you're a child. But this doesn't mean that we should judge a book based on its classification. A literary book can be very interesting. Meanwhile, there are some genre books that you just cannot finish because it's torture. I don't feel we should judge a book based on its classification, that once it's literary fiction, oh, it's boring, oh, it's genre fiction, I don't read that. It's like, what we should be looking at instead is the story. We should be looking at how good a story is, how good were the characters, how good was the conflict, how good was the writer's prose. Those are the things that we're meant to be looking at. So I'm not meant to be looking at, oh, this is literary fiction, I can't read this. This is genre fiction, pure rubbish. We should not be dividing ourselves like that, especially when we are all lovers of fiction. So the fact that literary fiction focuses more on internal conflict of the characters and genre fiction focuses more on outer conflicts in the plot, it doesn't mean that both are mutually exclusive to each other. Literary fiction only focuses on internal conflicts and genre fiction ignores internal conflict and it's only about the plot. Because I have read both, where literary fiction had a very good plot along with the internal conflict, and the genre fiction, you were actually very connected to the characters because you understood their struggles. A good story must have well developed and believable characters, must have a cohesive plot, and must have significant conflicts. So if a book does not have that, if a work of fiction does not have all of these things and more, it's probably not a good story, because a story is based on those three things. If a genre fiction only focuses on outer plots and does not have any internal conflict, it's not a good story. It doesn't matter how many awards it has won, it's not a good story. That's why many of these days you watch a lot of action movies and you're like, yeah, everything was good, the cinematography was good, the acting was good, but you just don't know why you didn't like it. So let me know in the comments, which one do you read more? Literary fiction or genre fiction? Personally, I like reading thrillers, but most of the books that I have read more than twice were literary fiction, most of the time because I liked the writer's prose. And let me remind you that people have different tastes. So just because you liked one book and you did not like another book doesn't mean that the book was not actually good. So let's stop with the arguments. So we've come to the end of the video. If you liked the video, please hit that thumbs up so that YouTube will know that you actually found it very valuable. And subscribe if you have not subscribed for more writing content like this. And till next time.